The Calgary Flames are an absolute mess right now. And with the Flames reportedly close to a rebuild, it could change up the entire NHL. They still got a lot of players with a ton of value here. And with a rebuild, we can see players like Nazem Kadri, Elias Lindholm, Nikita Zadorov, Tanev traded, and more. But what could this Calgary Flames rebuild actually look like? What trades can be made? Which teams will go after their big players? Well, make sure you watch till the end as I go through a ton of mock trades and all of the trade rumors to see what's next. And hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content and trade rumor content just like this all throughout the year. Now, the 5-8-2 Calgary Flames seem to be at a complete crossroads, and to me with Calgary, we have seen them inch closer and closer into the rebuilding territory. With their poor start of the season and all the UFAs that they have, it seems like the writing is on the wall that a rebuild or at least a major retool is in store for this Flames roster. Besides Mikael, Backlund, who they were able to extend to a 2-year contract extension, the rest of this team is pretty wide open, and there's even some players here locked up long term that could be dealt as well. And we're already hearing reports that over the next year at the trade deadline in the offseason, this Flames team is going to be aggressive and will hopefully want to stock up prospects and picks. First, let's talk about maybe the most recent situation to come up with Calgary, and that is the Nikita Zadorov trade request. When Zadorov's agent Dan Milstein replied to Kevin asking if the Flames could keep Zadorov, he said, "I don't think so. Not when the bestie barely gets the ice time." Rick Dhaliwal, who covers the Canucks, tweeted this in a reply. "This is the player that has been coveted by the Canucks for a while. If Zadorov hits July 1st, Vancouver will be on his list of potential destinations." Now, on the Donnie Adwali show, he ended up talking about what the Flames are asking for in different trades and what their expectations are too.
The Flames are looking for a young prospect who can play in their lineup right now. Look at the Tyler Toffoli trade the Flames made last year, Donnie. They got a 25-year-old forward, Jaeger Sharangovich. He came in. He's playing right away, young prospect. You can bet they're looking for players like Niles Höglander from Vancouver. Insert young play.
So it seems like Calgary is prioritizing top prospects, players that they can insert into the lineup now, and picks in the future as well. Now, in terms of teams linked to Nikita Zadorov in an actual trade, the Canucks are among them. Multiple insiders have noted the Canucks have a desire to talk about a trade with Zadorov. Darren Dreger says they are amongst the group of teams and includes Toronto and New Jersey that have already shown interest. Elliotte Friedman noted on the Saturday headlines that the Canucks are also in. So it seems as if we have a big three in the Zadorov sweepstakes, with the Leafs, Devils, and Canucks all fighting for it. But when we look at everything, these three teams make a ton of sense here. You look at Toronto, and of course Brad Treliving being GM from the Flames and being hired by Toronto. He's the one who traded for Nikita Zadorov's rights and signed him to Calgary, brought him in, and could bring him into Toronto too. But what are the mock trades for all three of these teams? How much would each team have to give up for the Big Z, and how could he fit onto the defense? Well, let's take a look. Now, before we get into those mock trades, we first need to determine what Zadorov's value could look like. Perhaps the most recent example of a bottom pair rental D-man getting traded was the Ben Sherratt deal, which the Habs absolutely won. You can see they got a first rounder, a fourth rounder, and a prospect back, and I think this is about the value that we would see going back to Calgary. In trading Nikita Zadorov, I think the Flames are going to want to go for both quantity in the prospect pool as well as the picks being given up. And for my mock trade, I see the Leafs trading Connor Timmins on that defense, who right now is on LTIR, hasn't played a game yet this year, but has played pretty solid. Nick Abruzzese, who has yet to get a shot in the NHL fully yet, but does have a lot of potential and has been great in the AHL, plus a 2024 third-round pick and a 2024 fifth-round pick. That third-round pick being the Islanders, and that fifth-round pick being the Blackhawks. So for both of those teams, looking like two picks that are going to be pretty high in their respective rounds. But to me, in both Timmins and Abruzzese, these are two guys that I think are pretty underrated in the Leafs system. Timmins, 25 years old, is a player that has progressed quite well. And you can see last year, when he got just a decent opportunity, he got 14 points in 25 games. We'll see how sustainable that would be, but there's an offensive ceiling there that I think the Flames could really use potentially on that bottom pair. And then you got Nick Abruzzese, who at 24 years old is a player that, again, has yet to break out, but as a former fourth-round pick, he's been fantastic in the AHL, was a point per game in the NHL last season, and I think could absolutely get a shot on that middle six for Calgary. With how many guys they have in that age range, I think he'd fit right in. Next up, let's go into the second team mentioned in the New Jersey Devils and what a trade could look like there. It'll be kind of similar to what the Leafs could offer, especially with the players the Flames will want to target. As for the actual mock trade itself, of course, the Devils will end up getting Nikita Zadorov, who I think will fit naturally on that middle pair on that left side, will be perfect there. In exchange, though, the Flames will end up giving Kevin Ball, who has been a consistent NHLer for the Devils, is getting a little better and better, and this is something that I could see the Devils not wanting to do, not wanting to give rid of Ball, but I think for the Flames, they're really going to want to target him, and he's a little bit less refined than Zadorov at this stage. Of course, isn't the biggest point getter, but of course, that physicality is the biggest thing with Ball and that size. Both players are 6'6". The Flames are going to be able to really easily replace Zadorov on that pair. And of course, I do see them also getting Grant Clark as well, 22-year-old, who's been in the AHL the past couple years and has put up some pretty fantastic numbers there. But it's probably going to be more of a bottom sixer for the Flames. Still, though, maybe on a third pair with some physicality there, I could see him working pretty well. And a 2025 third rounder, which is the New Jersey Devils. So not as many picks, but maybe a little bit more quality in the younger players they're getting. And then we go into the Vancouver Canucks, which might be one of the best teams in terms of pure fit, but of course, being in the Pacific Division, the price is going to have to be high. And this is one that I'm not sure if Canucks fans will actually like or not, but I think trading within the division, this is what it would take to get Zadorov on that Canucks defense. Going on to the mock trade itself, for Vancouver, of course, they will acquire Nikita Zadorov, 50% retained. In exchange, the Flames will get young player Nils Höglander, which is maybe the biggest hang-up, because I think the Canucks would still like to keep Höglander around, but he's had really some inopportune moments with coaches over the past few years, has gotten healthy scratched a couple of times, and still hasn't really been able to find great footing within this Canucks franchise, even though talent-wise he should be there. And I also see them giving up Tucker Pullman for really cap reasons. He's on LTIR right now. It's been a disastrous contract for them. And I also see them giving up a 2024 third rounder, which would be the New Jersey Devils. But really for the Flames, I think they're going to want to target Höglander if they're trading within the division. They want to get somebody they can use right now, potentially on a top six immediately. Höglander would do a lot for them and would be a big time get. So to me, especially in a new situation, Höglander would be great. And with how fluid Calgary is right now, especially with their coaching, I could see Höglander thriving. And on top of Zadorov, also having Chris Tanev and Noah Hanifin, this Flames team has a lot of options to trade defensively, and I think at least 2 out of those 3 will be dealt by the time this season is done. Especially Noah Hanifin. That could be a monster deal if it were to happen this year. And with Hanifin at 26 years old, he'll be a UFA after this year, and it seems like talks between him and Hanifin's camp have completely stalled. If he were to get traded, it would probably be a first-round pick plus and could bring a lot of value back. Now, going on to the forwards and what we could potentially see in terms of trades, to me, there are 2 guys that if this Flames team were to continue retooling, continue rebuilding, might as well be gone from this Flames roster, and that is Elias Lindholm and Nazem Kadri. Now, let's first talk about Lindholm because he's a lot less surprising out of those 2 guys. Is a pending UFA like a lot of other players on this Calgary team, and is a player that hasn't really had many talks with Calgary recently. Everything is trending towards a trade, and he could potentially be the big fish of this trade deadline. Now, there are a couple of teams here that I could really see going after him in free agency, namely the Chicago Blackhawks and the Columbus Blue Jackets. If he does hit FA, those are 2 teams to me that will really be in on him, especially Chicago. I could absolutely see them going after him, having a 2C behind Bedard for the foreseeable future. The only problem is they've drafted so many centers lately, like Oliver Moore and Frank Nazar, but I also think those guys could transition to the wing pretty effortlessly. With Lindholm, he brings a lot, especially defensively, that I think would really help Chicago and could provide some balance onto that top 6. The problem is, neither of those teams, I think, are going to trade for Lindholm during the season with their contending status or lack thereof. I don't really see them going for it for any real reason, but I think those teams, if they were to hit free agency, if Lindholm was there, they would go after him. But if they don't get him, then it's fine. They have prospects coming up in the pipeline that can fill those roles. But there's one team to me that I think is kind of interesting that I don't think a lot of people are talking about with how solid they've been this year. I think they could be pretty massive buyers at the deadline, and that is the Winnipeg Jets. I just gotta say, when you look at this lineup, do not be surprised if this is a Jets team that goes after a second line center. So far, Nemestikov has worked well, but I think the Jets could really go for it in a big way here and really load up that forward group. You could see you got Scheifele there, Lowry on that first and third line. You put Lindholm on that second line, and that is one of the better center groups in the league. And you look at them too as well. You see the deadline cap space, $7.2 million to work with. The Jets have a lot of options. I think Lindholm will be their main target. And the best part is you wouldn't even have to really split that second line up either. You could just have Perfetti, Lindholm, and Ehlers. And to me, that line just brings so many different styles to the game that could fit together well, with Lindholm's more reserved playmaking style, with Perfetti's incredible smarts and Ehlers' incredible speed. They got a lot of different talent here that could work together incredibly. What could an actual Lindholm to Winnipeg trade look like? Well, let's find out. When we look at recent potential comparables, the Bo Horvat trade would kind of make sense. Similar level of player, I think, Lindholm and Horvat. And you can see the Canucks got Anthony Beauvillier, Otto Radu, and a first-round pick, which ended up being 17th overall. Now let's go through the actual deal and what Winnipeg could potentially get for Lindholm. And this is a deal that I think could be really interesting for both sides. For the deal that Calgary ends up making, they will send Elias Lindholm to the Winnipeg Jets In exchange, though, the Calgary Flames will end up getting Chaz Lucius, 18th overall pick back in 2021, Ville Heinola, and a 2024 first-round pick, which is the Winnipeg Jets. Now, to me, maybe it's a little bit more steep than the Bo Horvat deal, but I also feel like for Winnipeg, they have less leverage because they are the Winnipeg Jets. So I think that could end up playing a factor. You see Chaz Lucius drafted 18th overall. He has not developed very nicely over the past few years. At 20, he has 3 points in 5 AHL games this year, has been really injured over these past few seasons, which has been really unfortunate to see, but could be maybe a middle six scorer for the Flames, and I could see him fitting into that role. You got Ville Heinola, who has been a mismatch in Winnipeg so far, still only 22 years old, but he deserves another shot in an NHL team, and to me is in a much better position than he should be in a much better position than he's been given in Winnipeg's franchise, and could be a middle pair D for them. And of course, you get that first round pick, which I think for Calgary in any Lindholm deal isn't essential. Obviously, the Jets will do their due diligence to see if they can re-sign Lindholm. If they are able to re-sign him, I think this trade makes a lot of sense and is pretty fair for both sides. And then going on to one of the last players to talk about here in Nazem Kadri. This one is surprising for a lot of people for very good reason. Of course, the Flames signed him to that $7 million mega deal just a couple years ago, and so far he has not really been at that incredible level that he was with Colorado. You can see 56 points in 82 games last year and 9 points in 15 games this year. He is a second line center, and he's in that role. He's going to be that type of player that we know. That will affect his value, especially for how much he's getting paid, but of course, we got word that Kadri does not want to be on this team long term if a rebuild does happen. Pierre LeBrun said that the Flames are open for business, and potentially with Dreger, he highlighted Nazem Kadri as a potential subject. Kadri expressed a desire to remain in Calgary, aiming for success with the team. However, he has communicated that if the organization opts for a rebuilding phase, he is not inclined to participate, a sentiment shared by others facing a similar situation to Kadri. So it seems like if Calgary is going to have a huge fire sale here, that Kadri will want out. He doesn't want to be a part of a rebuilding roster, which at 33 years old makes sense. But the problem is he signed up to be in Calgary, but what can you do? In the scenario that the Flames are trying to trade him and Kadri opens up his no move clause, I think there could be a couple of teams that can make this work. Especially compared to Elias Lindholm, I don't think Kadri would cost nearly as much. With that deal and that age being a major factor, I don't think the Flames are going to get much of anything. I still do think he has some value. I don't think the Flames are going to have to give up assets to get rid of him, but I don't think it's going to be the haul that maybe the Flames are satisfied with. Keeping in line with Central Division teams, one team makes a lot of sense to me personally is the Nashville Predators, who have, of course, acquired Ryan O'Reilly in free agency last year. It seems like they want to get a little bit older in that center group, and you can see, I mean, they don't have a fantastic center group outside of Ryan O'Reilly with Cody Glass, Juuso Parssinen, not really having the greatest years so far. I think the Predators are in a situation, especially with the lower cost, to make an in-season trade. You could even see maybe teams like Chicago and Columbus that we mentioned with Lindholm being more comfortable because of that lack of really any cost whatsoever. I was about to say maybe the Predators could have Kadri in a first-line center position after Ryan O'Reilly kind of ages out, but Kadri's actually older than Ryan O'Reilly. I had no clue whatsoever. Still, though, for a lot of those younger prospects, I think they'll want to build a top 6 center core that they can have some stability with. I think Kadri makes some sense, and Nashville has a ton of cap room over these next few years that I think they could utilize here. And when I say that I don't think the Flames will get that much for Kadri, I wasn't lying. For my mock trade, the Preds will end up acquiring Nazem Kadri, but going to the Calgary Flames, I see them getting Igor Afanasyev, who was a second-round pick by the Preds back in 2019, is on the precipice of being an NHL player. You can see over the past couple of years, has been progressing well in the AHL, could be probably a third-line player for the Preds in the future, and I also see them getting a 2024 fourth-round pick, which would be the Chicago Blackhawks. So, kind of a late third, early fourth, but not really too much value here for the Flames in a Kadri deal, and that is what really hurts the most. Maybe he goes in a hot streak throughout the rest of this year and increases that value, but I don't really see the Flames getting too much because that cap hit. Maybe they retain, but I consider Kadri's deal too long for that to be a possibility. But those are some of my mock trades for the Calgary Flames that could shake up the NHL in a big way. They have so many different assets that they could deal and so many different players that are disgruntled with the future of this team that I could see a mega fire sale by this Calgary Flames roster. And there's players I didn't even mention today that I could see being dealt, like Dylan Dubé, Dan Vladar. They have so many options, this Flames team, to really tear things down and truly build a winner for the draft, which I've been asking for a very long time. Just do it, Calgary. you need to do it. Let me know in the comments down below, what do you guys think of my mock trades? Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? And what do you guys think the Flames could get back for Lindholm, for players like Zadorov, for Tanev, for players like Kadri as well? Let us know all your thoughts down below. Of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and share the video with all the hockey, all the Flames fans you guys know online, and click this card for all my Trade Deadline content right on playlist. My name is Nathan, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and goodbye.